I want to show you something. If I click on my algorithm and I'd show you, and I didn't even see exactly what was showing, but I can tell it from my experience and your experience how really we were never meant to experience these many emotions so quickly. And where you can go from sadness to joy to rage to lust to a variation of all of them, the full range of them within seconds of each other. And really was never meant life to be like this. If you think about, if you have the privilege of that when you were younger and you were, you know, going about your life, the rhythm of it was much slower. Nowadays, it seems that we forgot that, it's not as if things are boring in between these moments of a high spiking of dopamine or of entertainment, wherever it may be. That is the norm. The spikes, in a normal context of the past would be the exception. If you really think back in history, no one, no matter how rich, how wealthy, how much access they had, they would have these spikes of dopamine and of different content of just noise, and they could not access that, especially all the time from a device they take out of their pocket, and that they can be there essentially the whole day, forever. And again, I don't want to be here just one more person saying, phone is bad, put it down, because while I agree, obviously that's very obvious. But it's first of all to show just how disconnected we've become from the rhythm of life, the true rhythm of life. And if you are privileged enough, and if you can think back to younger days, before the internet, before we all had a smartphone in our pockets, you will, if you can remember, see how much, much more of life was just much quieter and without nothing happening. With, you just be walking outside and there's, and if you have to sit waiting for the bus, you're just sitting waiting for the bus. Or if you sit down, you order a coffee, there's nothing to do while you wait for the coffee. Or as if you go grocery shopping, you're just grocery shopping. It wouldn't have these moments of, let me pull out the phone, I'm a bit bored, scroll, scroll, scroll. Now back to what I was doing. There was none of these moments where we're filling the silence of life, if we want to call it that, the calmness of life, with entertainment, with emotional spikes. It simply didn't exist. And one of the biggest problems I see here that happens with the existence of it is that we become, almost metaphorically speaking here, as if we're sailors that are always sailing storms. It's the waves, the sea's always rough, the waves are always seemingly fighting against us. And then when we find ourselves in a peaceful sea with so much to enjoy, with so much to be grateful for, we just can't. It feels too much in the wrong sense, because we're used to too much, to noise, to it always being there, to something always happening. And then when nothing is happening, we're not prepared for it. We're simply, we become too aware. There's always this moment I remember when I was used to take the train from my city, where, and I don't know exactly why, but at some point during the trip, it felt like as if they turned it all off, and it would be an overwhelming silence where everyone, it's like as if this buzzing on the background that was always there and you're not aware, would stop, and all of a sudden everyone was like, would all seemingly stop. It's like you stop your conversation, you talk a bit lower, because you just become so aware. And even though the noise is what was kind of disturbing that, as soon as the noise returned, it was almost as if people become more comfortable again. They were like, oh my god, the noise of usual is here finally. It was a bit too much without it. And one can argue here, of course, on the other side, like, oh, but what's the problem with that? If it makes my life less boring and makes me more entertained, what is the problem with that? Well, perhaps I'm a bit more distracted, my eyes are a bit more at the end of the day, but is it really that bad? Well, it's not only about that. If it was only about that, there would be no problem, of course. But the problem with filling life with these moments and essentially getting out of the, what I would call here, the natural rhythm of life, is that busy with all this anger, this noise, this lust, all these things online, we worry because we cannot avoid this. We start worrying so much about everything. And we become so aware of everything of the world, the war there, and these problems in the Europe and America, and now the World Cup's happening, all these things happening, that it seems that there's so much things happening in the world and I can't do anything about them. And I'm just here from my room. What the hell can I do about it? I can see that it's wrong, or I can see something has to change, but what can I realistically do? And that can very naturally lead one to just say, well, I can't really do anything, so I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to keep entertaining myself and whatever. But worried about the world's problems and the problems far, far away from you, the ones you cannot impact, and I can't, and very few people can, we forget about the problems that are close to us that not only we can impact, but we should. And on our phones and on these news and all this, worried and arguing online and all that, how often do we not skip moments that we could do good and that we could help people? Even if it's just with a smile and a boring small talk, there's so many of these moments that more and more are neglected and are rejected and are ignored because we simply are looking in the wrong places. And even going further from that, because I believe the problem that one can solve the best and that they should is really the question of, why am I here and what am I going to do with that? What am I going to do with my life? And if we always fill ourselves with noise, with these things, away from the rhythm of life, away from moments that I'm just in a park bench looking at nothing, or walking, or doing nothing, quote unquote, then I can never ponder over these questions. I can never allow the intensity of them and the discomfort of not having an answer for them to push me where I have to go. And if I never do that, if I'm never pushed to solve my life and to answer these questions, then I become a passenger, essentially. Always looking at everything, seemingly knowing a lot about the world, and I watch all the movies and I see documentaries about it, but I consume all of this and I observe all of this, but it's a very sterile existence because I do not experience any of it. It's like I'm a passenger in the car, but I'm never driving. And the thing here about life, as I would say, is that we are meant to drive.